Here we are. Hi, everyone. Welcome to You Make the Call. Thanks for joining us tonight. Very special night for us and for you too as well. We have all of the Councilor-At-Large, not all of them. We have 5 out of the 7 Councilor-At-Large candidates with us. And so we're going to be, asking them questions that Barry and I kind of ginned up, and, we want to, let you see who they are, in case you don't, and you should by now, but in case you don't, see who they are, and you can evaluate how they do. So, but there were, just so everybody knows, every Councilor-At-Large candidate was invited. 5 chose to come, and 2 chose not to come. So we'll leave it to your scrutiny to make a determination of whether that was appropriate not to be here or not. So, but we're not going to get into that. So anyway, so we're going to, the candidates know the ground rules. We talked before the show, so we don't have to go through that. They know what's expected, what we're going to ask them in terms of, opening remarks, closing remarks, and whatnot. And so anyway, we're going to start off with Tom Rossignoll sitting in seat number 1 over here. There you go. And Tom, if you want an opening remark, you please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Barry, for having me here. I'm Tom Rossignoll, lifelong Peabody resident, 4th generation Peabody. I have 2 daughters, Amanda, 23, in grad school, Christina, 19, a freshman at Quinnipiac. I've been on the school committee for 8 years, and I'm just finishing my first term on the city council. If you will have me, I would love to retain my seat. I think I show honor and integrity with every vote I make, and I would be honored to have your support on November 5th, and I am 6th on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. John DeRosa.
Hello, everyone. My name is John DeRosa. This is my first time running for a position here in Peabody. I worked for the Peabody Police Department for 32 years. Last 10 as a police captain. I've been involved in a lot of different activities in the city, from major events, budgets, grants. A longtime city resident, graduated in 1980. I just dated myself. And I would really appreciate the opportunity to be able to serve on the city council. I'd be honored to be able to serve and to keep doing what I was doing, only in a different capacity from law enforcement. I did retire in May after 32 years. Again, I'm number 1 on the ballot, so I would appreciate your consideration on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go, I just want, are they here coming through? They hear everything's okay. Just want to make sure that sometimes you have to speak up. Your voice is like soft and gentle. So you got to get in. You got to get in.
You want me to get into cop mode? I'll get into cop mode.
If you're going to try to get on the council, if you make it, you got to be more powerful than that.
Get ready.
Ryan, you're up number 3.
Well, thank you very much, Dick and Barry and PAT for putting on this event. My name is Ryan Melville. I'm currently a Councilor-At-Large here in the city of Peabody. I'm born and raised in the city of Peabody. I graduated from Peabody High School in 2004. Had a great experience going through the Peabody school systems. I've decided to settle down here, spend the rest of my life here with my wife, Mariana. And I got to tell you, it's been a great honor to be on the city council this past year and a half. I think I've been able to contribute. I have a background in veteran services. I'm a veteran myself. In my current job, I'm the Director of Licensing for the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. So I'm consistently dealing with every municipality in the state, and so I feel like I have the ability to bring back some great ideas to try to contribute. All I'm looking to do is to serve my community, and that's what I think I've been doing the last year and a half, and I hope to continue it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. And the only lady here tonight, is up next, Ann Manning Martin. Ann, you're up.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you, Barry, and thank you, PATV, for putting together this service so that the candidates can be heard and folks at home could learn a little bit more about us before they go to the polls. I really appreciate that. My name is Ann Manning Martin, and I have been on the council now for 6 terms, and if I'm fortunate enough and the people will have me, I'd like for their consideration for another term where I will continue to ask the difficult questions, research every issue that comes before us so that I'm confident in the vote that I'm making, that it does what's in the best interest of the city, looks out for your tax dollars and your quality of life, and I know that I answer to you at home, and I represent 53,000 people in the city of Peabody, and that's how I conduct myself, and that's what I plan to continue to do if you'll have me. So I'd hope for your consideration on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Last but not least, Jarrod Hochman. Jarrod, you're up.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, PATV, for this forum this evening. It's a good opportunity for residents of the city of Peabody to get to know us just a little bit better. I moved to Peabody in 2002, and I absolutely fell in love with this city. I've almost immediately began immersing myself in civic duties in the city. I became elected to the Peabody School Committee in 2009. Prior to that, I served on the Peabody Conservation Commission. I'm currently a member of the Board of Directors of my temple. I'm also president of Peabody Babe Ruth. But one of the things I'm most proud of is being co-founder and co-director of No Child Goes Hungry in Peabody, where we provide approximately 375 Peabody Public School students with food every single weekend. We fill 375 backpacks on Thursdays to provide them with food every week. And that's just some of my civic activity. I'm number 5 on the ballot. I would appreciate your consideration to use one of your 5 votes for Councilor-At-Large for me in November 5th. Thank you.
Okay, Jarrod, thank you. Thank you all for your opening remarks. So we're going to get into the questions now. So, Tom, you're going to answer one, and then you're all going to answer the same question. And the next question, John, you'll be up, and going right down the line like that. But you all get the same questions, okay? Now, this is a Dickie, because this is like my show, you know. So I'm going to ask the first question. So Barry had nothing to do with this question. So, all right, because he doesn't want to, you know, fend you guys off. No, I think this is a pretty good question. I took the approach from rather than people wanting to hear your opinions on things with regard to issues, I thought I'd phrase this question: what the people you serve or hope to serve want to hear from you. So the first question is, what quality or qualities do you believe people want from their elected officials?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
No, I mean, put it this way. I think when you're in a position on the city council, and when I served on the school committee, I think it's all about balance, especially on the city council. You have to balance the needs for progress and development, balance that with the needs of the taxpayers and the seniors and any tax increase that may occur. So I think the number one key is balance. I really do. I think being a therapist and going into seniors' homes, I see what every little tax increase does have an effect on that population. So any decision that we make on the city council has to be made with balance, and it has to be thought out for every resident.
Okay. John, you want me to repeat the question, or do you think you're...
I think I have it.
Okay.
What I would say is what the public should want and does want is someone with integrity, someone who's going to come in and represent them fairly, take their opinions on what's going on, make sure it's represented on the city council. They want you to be responsive. If they have needs or concerns, they're going to want to reach out. They're going to expect you to at least get back to them. And then when you do end up on the council floor, they're going to want you to protect their interests as far as taxes, as far as development, as far as to what quality of life issues can help them. It's no different than what I did for the police department for many years, working on community policing initiatives. I went into a lot of neighborhoods and would talk with people and find out what concerns they had or what the issues were, and we'd try to work on it together. And I believe the city council is just another arm of that, but I believe the integrity and the responsiveness and the openness And transparency to me is huge as well, so that everybody knows where you're coming from and what you stand for. And again, if I get on the council, that's exactly how I'm going to operate, exactly like I did when I was in law enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
For the public.
Ryan?
Thank you. When I first decided to run for office 2 years ago, I spent some time with at the senior center and with some folks that have been around for a while. And one of the main points they always gave to me was authenticity. Is that they were looking for somebody that was going to be an elected official that said what they meant and meant what they said. And I think that that's something I've carried with me since that point. A really important part of, I think, being a counselor is to be humble. Problems that don't seem like they're a big deal to me as a 34-year-old might not be seen the same way as somebody that might be 84 years old. So I think the authenticity and being humble are two of the main points that I've found that have helped me be successful as a counselor at large. Constituency services calls are coming. When they come in, it's important that that person know that you care and that it's a meaningful issue for you just as much as it is for them. And that helps with getting these problems solved. So I've found and by the way, the folks at the senior center and other folks I've talked to, they've told me based off of what they've seen of successful elected officials in this city of Peabody. So when I see success, I try to match it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ann?
Thank you. I think people in general want in their representatives honesty, integrity, transparency, and courage. And courage would, to do the right thing. And, I've been in elected office now for 20 years and the last 12 as a counselor at large. And I've learned that people are fine in disagreement as long as you tell them why you voted a certain way and you have a reason for it and that you've researched the reason. And they're fine with that. It's not about them disagreeing with your votes. It's about doing things in the cover of darkness. If you don't air out issues and bring it to folks at home and ask them what they feel about the issues that are directly affecting them, that upsets them and it makes them cynical. And when it brings suspicion that leads to cynicism, and people don't like that. I don't like that. And I've learned in 20 years, be open, be honest, be transparent, talk to them about what their needs are and listen to them and do the best you can in helping them. And I've been doing that for 20 years, and I enjoy doing it because I like to help people. And on the council and as an elected official, if you do your job right, you can help a lot of people and help them with issues, especially with their quality of life. Every day, you just help them a little bit, and it makes everybody's lives a little bit better.
Thank you, Ann. Jarrod?
Yeah, thank you, Dick. Thank you for the question. I think constituents want to see a city councilor that's hardworking. They want to see someone that's responsive to their needs. They want to see someone who's available to them when they have a concern, because their concern is paramount at that time for them. They want to see someone who's able to put themselves in their shoes and understand the problem from their perspective. Someone who's willing to investigate the issue, come up with a solution, be a problem solver for them. I have a track record of being on the Peabody School Committee for 10 years, and I think those are some of the qualities I bring to that position. Those are certainly some of the qualities that I would bring to the City Council if I were fortunate to be elected on November 5th. But I think that the public in general wants city councilors who are available to them, who are willing to come to their door, willing to answer their phone calls immediately. That's the day and age we live in. There's no more a response 3, 4, or 5 days after you get the phone call or the email or the text message. I have my cell phone number as my phone number on the city website for my school committee position. I get my phone right here, and once I get an issue from a constituent, I'm back on it, within hours, the latest. And I think that that's some of the stuff that people want to see.
Okay.
Thanks, Jarrod.
Very good answers, all of you. I think people will be happy with all that kind of stuff. Good job. All right, Barry, you up, bud?
Okay, so first, I don't think I really want to thank all the candidates for coming. I think it's important that you're here tonight to let the residents know where you stand on important issues, and it shows you really care about the community for coming in, so thanks for coming. So I just want to start off, the last forum I watched, there was a lot of talk about quality of life, quality of life, quality of life, and that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So my question is, do you think some of the overdevelopment in the city is impacting the residents' quality of life, some of the overdevelopment in the city? And if you do, as a councilor, how would you protect our neighborhoods from intrusive development?
John, start with that.
Yes, I would definitely say overdevelopment is affecting everyone's quality of life. Quality of life has everything to do with traffic, has to do with your neighborhoods, has to do with your friends, has to do with schools, has to do with can you afford to live there. So by overdeveloping, it's impacting people, in my opinion, in a negative way, especially large developments. As you said, the second part of your question, I don't think they belong in residential neighborhoods. There's a recent one that's been going on that I've been watching. I haven't had anything to do with. But talking with everyone in that neighborhood when I was walking to meet people, everybody was very concerned about that. And in my opinion, sitting on the council, it's my job to make sure that you're represented, which means that your quality of life, and quality of life can be also noise. It could be what we call a formless fear, where you could have kids hanging out in the street and people think it's a crime issue. You could have the elderly that are worried about things going on in the neighborhood. So overdevelopment, bringing more people in, impacts everybody, whether, as I said, you're driving down the street, or whether you're trying to go to bed at night, or if you work overnight and you're trying to go to bed during the day. There's a lot of issues. Quality of life, people want to feel safe, people want to feel represented, and
All right.
and people just want to make sure that their neighborhoods stay as they are neighborhoods.
Thank you, John.
Before I go any further, one thing I think I failed to mention, we will not be taking calls. I know it's on the screen. Good, it's up there. So please don't try to call in during the show. Thank you. All right, Ryan, you're up.
All right, thank you. This is a common issue that I'm hearing on the campaign trail. I think it is a neighborhood by neighborhood issue with regards to what's going on and what kind of developments. Are people adding additions onto their houses in already established neighborhoods? So it really varies on where we're seeing it. At least that's what I'm hearing out on the street. With the unique challenge we have today is that technology and economics are colliding to allow people to develop in places that they could never develop before, right? So that's the problem. And when I was running 2 years ago, it was when the Birch Hills stuff was starting to come up, and I saw firsthand that whether it be through the Conservation Commission, through the Planning Board, there are conditions and things that can be put on a developer, but yet they can still move forward. And I think that's the most important thing we can do is to continue to respect our institutions and how they're set up to vet these projects out. Secondly, I think we have to respect our zoning as it's established. I think that's a big part of it. I think Councilor Gravel has made a real emphasis on this since I've been on the council, that zoning was established for a reason and we have to respect it and abide by it. And that's the best way that we can ensure that the neighbors know what they're investing in and that their neighborhood will continue to be that way. I think that's a big part of what I will continue to do on the council.
Thank you. Ann?
Yes, I would concur with Ryan that we need to respect our zoning, but I would go a step further and say that we need to protect our zoning, because our zoning protects us in two ways. It protects us from frivolous lawsuits. We can't act arbitrarily or capriciously and ignore our zoning. And it also protects our neighborhoods. And, the elephant in the room, J.B. Thomas, the city, I'll say it, the city handled that very poorly. There was an emphasis to change zoning in an area that was an R2, and the attempt was to change it to an R4 without notifying that neighborhood in a manner that they should have. And so I reached out to the neighbors in that neighborhood. I let them know what was going on and informed them, and they got engaged and they got involved, and now the project has been tabled. So what we need to do is think about where we want housing and much as we did with the residential overlay. We selected where we were going to change the zoning because we felt that we could handle zoning in those areas. And it was a small area by the mall and a small area out on Route 1. But we don't want to get into a situation that happened at the J.B. Thomas, where developers come to us and want to change our zoning. That's backwards. We want to have a vision and foresight of what we want, where we want, and we utilize our zoning in order to do that, to protect us, and our zoning, again, just protects neighborhoods. And if we adhere to it, it protects the council and the city from staying out of lawsuits.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Jarrod?
Overdevelopment is absolutely impacting the quality of life for, I would say, every resident in the city of Peabody. I do agree that looking at development in neighborhoods is a case-by-case situation. For example, the J.B. Thomas. But for the J.B. Thomas fiasco, I'll call it, I'm not putting my name on the ballot for a City Councilor-At-Large position. That fiasco turned up my neighborhood so much. I live on Ellsworth Road, a block and a half from the former hospital, and I can't tell you how many of my neighbors ran to me, how many of my neighbors called me, because we have a ward councilor who was not in tune with what our neighborhood wanted, not in tune with what our neighborhood was willing to accept, and wouldn't talk to the neighbors to ask them what they were willing to do at the J.B. Thomas site. It went so far as, and you talk about, how government is bad for people. The attorney for the developer would only work through, and I don't blame him for this because he has to work with the city council all the time, but he would only work through the ward councilor, wouldn't talk to any neighbors because that's the way the process is. And that's awful. When government is so blind to what their constituents and the residents of that neighborhood want, it's time for change. There's no question about that for me. But that project was going to add 238 parking spaces with tandem parking. I mean, it was just it was going to ruin a neighborhood. And we hope at this point for some development there. We're not anti-development, and we want to have the conversations with the developer, with the administration, the mayor's office, with the city council, and work with everybody to get a good project. And I think we should look at all projects in that manner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. Quality of life, that is maintaining, I grew up in Peabody. Peabody's huge. Maintaining that small town feel that I think that Ann and we grew up with, and Ryan as well. Neighborhoods, maintaining that. So I think a couple of people already mentioned it, but zoning is key. Maintaining our zoning rules and our zoning regulations so that we do not overdevelopment. I think the best thing we did was to add the residential overlay in pockets where development and housing is appropriate and it can be controlled. The other thing that we did is limit the size and scope of those developments so that it doesn't get out of hand and doesn't disrupt neighborhoods and residents. The one thing that development does lead to is traffic and traffic concerns. So that's something that we have to be very vigilant with as we develop to make sure that we're up to date with our state legislation to make sure that our traffic flow patterns continue to be at their peak so that it doesn't seem that any development that we do within our zoning regulations causes traffic delays more than it already has.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Okay, this next question is mine. And so it's first question had to do with what you think people are looking for in an elected official. The second question is, okay, what qualities do you think you have that would make people run out and give you a vote?
That goes to
And this,
Ryan.
yeah, I'm sorry, just go, I'm sorry, you're right, that goes to Ryan. Sorry about that, Ryan.
Well, I think one of the major qualities I think I bring is the ability, something that I always want to do, which is serve the city of Peabody. I've had a lot of great opportunities. Being a city councilor, much of the job is actually constituency services and dealing with issues that, and especially at Councilor-At-Large, you might have an issue in South Peabody, you might have an issue in West Peabody, you might have a downtown issue. And one thing I have done is to reach out to my fellow colleagues who have been on the council for a while or been involved in government for some time and get their advice, so that I can best serve the constituents of the city of Peabody. So I think the service side of it is something I've done, whether it be in the military, now in state government, and as a counselor. I think that I have portrayed myself as best as I could to be open and available to the residents of Peabody, and moreover, that if I can't answer your question right away, I'm going to get back to you with either the resource that can answer that question, or some sort of aid to get you to where you need to be, so that you feel fulfilled in your discussions with me. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, Ann?
Thank you. I think I am, I've got a track record of being a very hardworking counselor, and I do my homework, I research, and I think that when I do come to a conclusion and I make a vote, I'm not afraid to tell people why I made it. I'm not afraid to tell people why I disagree with them, and I can do it in a very, I can disagree agreeably. And I also am not afraid to disagree with the administration. I'm not afraid to tell the administration that I think an initiative or a project is a bad idea, and I'll be able to tell the administration why I think it's a bad idea. I'm not just going to say no for the sake of saying no. I'll tick off statistics, I'll tick off issues that will affect quality of life, will disrupt a neighborhood, will be something that isn't sustainable if it's an expenditure, an automatic pay increases for non-union employees that make over six figures, making $100,000 a year, get automatic pay increases. That's not sustainable. And I am not afraid to articulate these things and stand by what I believe in, as I'm looking out for the best interest of everyone in the city and not just a select few. And again, I think those are the qualities that people want to see in their government. Good people make good government, and good people make a good community. And I love my community, so I'm going to continue to behave that way as long as the voters will have me.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, Jarrod?
Thank you. Again, great question. I care. I care. I care about people. I care about helping people. I think that's the number one quality I bring to this job. In addition to that, I'm hardworking. People see that from me, who I work with already. I'm a collaborator. I want to work with other people. I don't take pride in authorship or any ownership of any policy. I want to work with other counselors. I want to work with department heads. I want to work with the administration in order to come to a solution. I'm a problem solver. I won't walk away from the table saying no and just walk away from the issue. I'm happy to stay there as long as it takes to get the problem solved and get a solution to an issue. I've worked on budgets in the school department that are now approaching $80 million. I've negotiated contracts, collective bargaining agreements with various bargaining units through the school department. But the biggest quality I bring to this position is that I care about people. I can put myself in their shoes. I can understand what they're going through, and I can solve problems for them. In addition to that, I have the capacity to have a vision as to what I want the city to be and how to work with other people to accomplish part of that goal.
Okay,
Thank you, Jarrod.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I bring integrity, honesty, responsiveness, and respect. Those are the qualities that I try to bring to everything I do, whether it was on the school committee or whether it's been the last 2 years on the city council. My background's unique. Being a therapist, my job is to literally go into seniors' homes every day. That's my job during the day as a physical therapist. So I'm in a unique position that by day I see the struggles that the seniors have, and whether any tax increase that we decide to make on the city council and how it affects them. I'm a parent of 2 daughters that have gone through the Peabody Public Schools, so I have that behind me as a background. I was on the school committee for 8 years, so I have that behind me as a background. So I see, and I grew up here, and like I said in the beginning, I'm a fourth-generation Peabody citizen. Having all of those different angles to look at the city from really gives me a unique perspective on where we are, where we've been, and where we should go. So with my background and trying to do what I honestly believe is what's best in a respectful manner and in a collaboration with some great people that I've had the opportunity to work with over the 10 years, I really want what's best for the city that I absolutely love.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom.
John?
I would say my commitment to service. Having worked for the city of Peabody for 32 years in law enforcement, it's been quite the commitment, and I'd really have to say I enjoy working with people. Obviously, too, as I said previously, integrity and honesty and responsiveness. You got to be able to work collectively to try to solve problems for the community. I've done it repeatedly, whether it was I worked as a union person, worked to save the city a lot of money during healthcare negotiations. We worked together with the city. The city was able to save millions of dollars, and the unions worked along with the city to get that done, and it was contentious at times. We were able to work through that. And I care about people. I care about what they need, what they want, and I'll bring their issues forward. And I'm not afraid to say no. I'm not afraid to say no if I disagree with what's going on, but I am going to base my decisions on what the public wants. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Barry, I think the next one is yours.
Okay. We're all well aware of the lawsuit on the Betancourt building and the outcome. Having said that, I guess this is a question what the role of government is. So my question is, do you think it's proper for the city to use taxpayer money to buy private property, or should it be left to the private sector to invest in these properties?
And that's your baby.
Indeed. Well, the city has, over the past 5 years or so, invested probably close to $3 million, whether it's a combination of reserves, CPA, Community Preservation Act
Yeah,
monies,
CPA, yep.
on buying private property. And it goes back from, I think the first one might have been 2012. It was maybe $180,000 for the Codere building. I think it's like 1416 Lowell Street. Shortly after that, I think it was a $650,000 expenditure for the church on Washington Street that is still vacant, and I think we still rent it to the very people we bought it from. Then we purchased the two Washington for, say, $450 in the beginning. By the end of the debacle, it cost us $1.25 million, and that sits as an albatross. And we also rent property. We entered into an agreement to move the school department administration to Lowell Street, and I think that's up to $7,000 a year, and actually I think it's in its third year of the lease, and I think it's up. So I'm wondering, how much the rent's going to be and where are they going next and how long they're going to stay there. But we are spending a lot of money, and I'm running out of time. This is obviously an issue that I could go on and on about. No, we need to stop this process, and I've been saying this for the past several years. Prior I was saying pump the brakes to the mayor to start purchasing and spending, making these propositions. Now I say absolutely not. And what I will say though is that the mayor, Mayor Turigian always used to say, the mayor proposes and the council disposes. So he needs to be told no. I've been telling him no for quite some time, and the council needs to tell the mayor, no, that is not a good idea. And you can turn around and look at all those properties that I just mentioned, and it's an indication that it is not working, and we need to stop doing that.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
I don't mean for my answer to sound ambivalent on this one, but it depends. And I think it depends upon the plan that the city has with what they're going to do with the specific property. So some of the properties that Ms. Manning Martin mentioned are sitting vacant and are continuing to dilapidate and aren't any benefit to the city. In addition to the properties that Ms. Manning Martin mentioned, there's the Endicott Street Administration Building, there's the Kiley School Building, which is now vacant and running down, and that hurts taxpayers. That increases the burden on both homeowners who are paying real estate taxes and commercial business owners who are paying commercial taxes. And what I mean by that is we now have these parcels of property that aren't taxable. There's no real estate tax being collected on municipal properties. In addition to the money that Mr. Sinewitz talked about is being spent on the properties themselves, plus the cost of litigation on top of that with some of them. There's a need to get rid of some of the properties that the city owns and to do it quickly to alleviate the taxpayer with the burden that's going to come year after year. There are going to be increases in the budget year after year. Health insurance goes up every year. There are collective bargaining agreements that need to be honored, and we need to offset some of those increases with sale of some of the real estate, revenue coming in from some of those parcels of real estate that are hopefully going private, and be able to recover some real estate taxes from them. I will say, though, there are times when it's appropriate for the city to take on property. You know, I'd love to see Curious City, the Children's Museum, with a permanent home. You know, it just got expanded. I think that there was just another grant that came in, and I'd love to see that in the downtown walking area on Washington Street somewhere where the city does own property. Maybe it's St. Paul's Church, or maybe somewhere, you know, in that corridor. But so there are times when it's appropriate for the city to take on property, preserve historical properties and things along those lines.
Thank you, Jarrod. Tom?
Thank you. I think the key is to have a plan in place prior to the purchase. You look at the Betancourt building, you look at the church. They were rundown properties that the city said, okay, well, let's purchase them, let's rehab them, but without a clear plan in place. And I think if we're going to go down that road, we need a plan in place. So, for instance, I know they're trying to do the Riverwalk, which is going to be along behind Main Street. Now, if that involves purchasing property, I'm all for it because there's a plan in place. It's going to deal with flood mitigation, and it's going to deal with beautification. The Brody's building, that's going to be flood mitigation. So as long as there's a plan in place behind it, and it's going to be of a benefit in nature for the city as a whole, then I do think it's an appropriate use of funding. But right now, we have a lot of abandoned properties that we need to take care of, whether it's the Endicott building, whether it's 1 Washington. We need to, or the Kiley building that was mentioned, we need to start doing stuff with taking care of the buildings that we have and getting money back from those buildings.
Okay, thank you. And John?
I would say no. No, the city shouldn't be spending taxpayer dollars to buy properties. The city of Peabody shouldn't be in the real estate business. The private sector handles that and handles that very well. As some of the other candidates have mentioned, we're taking buildings off the tax rolls. And the city's responsible for its maintenance, responsible for its liability, responsible to pay for the bills. I really can't see a reason why we would buy buildings that would be available to commercial developers, and they would be able to utilize that to bring businesses or housing or anything they can into the city of Peabody. And also they have projections on what they're going to make off of a property. I don't know, I haven't sat on the council, but I don't know if anyone sat back and said, what are we going to do with this property? What are the projections? What are we looking to do? What's the gain? So my answer will be no. The city should not be buying all these properties. We should leave it to the private sector. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Okay.
You all right?
Sorry.
Thanks, Dick.
Sorry.
I think the most appropriate place for government when it comes to these issues is to ensure that the infrastructure is in place, that the private sector can succeed in any sort of business dealings that they wish to do. I think it's what I'm afraid of is that there could become a time where we see that there's a advantageous purchase that the city needs to make, with regards to some sort of property, and that could be for public works and for the general good of the community. But it's going to be very difficult for any of the councilors right now to be able to make that case to the residents of Peabody, because essentially we've taken off without being able, not sure we can land. I think that the issues on the Betancourt building, along with some of the other properties on Washington Street, that story hasn't finished yet. So I'm curious to see what will come up. I know there's some discussion about the Children's Museum and what will come from that. I'd like to know, I got a lot of questions about that, financing and whatnot. But in general, I think that a most appropriate place, government at its most successful, is when it puts itself in a position so that the private industry can use their business and properties and investment at their own for their profit, and not necessarily the government getting inside the real estate game. Oftentimes, we're a not-for-profit enterprise, and that's the difference between ourselves and some of the developers or business folks that might get involved in some of those properties downtown. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Can I proceed now? Is everybody lined up good here? I'm the only one that seems not to be lined up.
You're in order, sir.
I'm always out of order. Everybody knows that. Okay, my question is, during some of the forums, I don't call them debates, but forums that you folks have been involved with, this affordability question comes up. Is Peabody affordable to, elderly, for instance, and how about young people, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. So I guess I'm going to ask the question directly. Jarrod, I think this is is Peabody affordable?
So I've been, during my campaign, walking the streets and talking to people at their houses and their doorways, and it's an interesting question with an interesting answer. I think that a lot of seniors find Peabody more affordable than not. And the reason for that is a lot of people who've been here for a long time who may not have a mortgage on their house. The real estate taxes are still relatively low. Certainly regionally they're considered low. We have a Peabody Municipal Light Plant that's doing a phenomenal job at keeping rates low on electricity. So for those reasons, there are a lot of seniors that do find Peabody affordable. It seems to me that with the housing market the way it is now and the way it's kicked up in the last 3 or 4 years, it's young families that are finding Peabody unaffordable. There really is no more starter-level homes, single-family homes for people to move into. Capes in South Peabody and other areas in Gardner Park area, a Cape is $400,000 now, and that's needing work getting into it. So I think that younger people are finding it more difficult to enter into Peabody, but older people who don't have a big mortgage on their house, I think still find Peabody somewhat affordable. I will say that the rental market, the residential rental market is out of control. It's almost impossible for young people who are just coming out of college or coming out of graduate school to find an apartment that they can afford. I mean, I think a studio apartment at Mr. Tedisco, who just renovated Main Street, I want to say a studio apartment was like $1,750 or something along those. I'm not positive on that, but that's 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartments in some of these big residential complexes are $2,500, $2,600. You have single parents out there who are trying to raise kids, and that's virtually impossible for them to live in those facilities.
Thank you, Jarrod. Okay. Tom?
The first answer is yes. Peabody is affordable. We have a lot of neighborhoods that have been long established, and there are, for the most part, it is. I think the difficulty comes, especially with seniors, is when we keep taxing over and over again every year, and that number continues to grow, and that's what makes it a little bit of a stretch for seniors that have been in their homes for a long period of time. As far as the younger generation, they're looking for a different type of housing market than what we're accustomed to, and I'll speak for myself. Being 49 years old and already kind of going through that process, younger kids nowadays, the 20-somethings, they're looking for that work, eat, play, that all-encompassing type of living environment. And I think that was one of the reasons why we as a council developed the residential overlay, was to establish an attractive market for the 20-somethings to kind of grow into. It's a different concept than what I'm familiar with. I wanted the house and in a neighborhood, but the kids, the 20-somethings nowadays really want that all-encompassing type of living environment. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think the residential overlay was such, was one of the reasons why I was in such support of it, is because especially at the mall, you have that hybrid of that work, eat, play model.
Okay, thank you.
I would have to say affordable. In some ways, some parts of Peabody, as was stated, electric light rates are low. However, I think whether it's a young family or the elderly, and I'm going to use an example, my elderly mother, who lives off Social Security, is in a mortgage-free home, but between the increased cost of prescription medication and the constant increase in taxes and just costs of services in general, eats away at that money they get from Social Security, which makes it very difficult for them to be able to afford to live the way I personally feel they should. And again, to bounce back to the younger families, I would have to agree with Mr. Hochman over there that it's difficult for a younger family or a person raising their children with the constant increase in taxes. They're living on budgets. Everybody lives on a budget, but especially when you have young children and you're trying to afford different things, whether it's sports, certain fees, but when your taxes continually go up, it's making it less and less affordable for people to stay within the city of Peabody or to buy in the city of Peabody. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
thanks, Now you.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Dick. Appreciate it. Here, baby. My experience is that it really depends on if you are currently a resident of Peabody or if you're looking to buy into Peabody. And the reason I say that is I'm 34 years old. I have friends of mine that are starting families, and a couple of them are civil servants. They're firemen and police officers. They couldn't afford to purchase a home in the city of Peabody. Now, they wanted to purchase a home. They were looking for very specific. They already had families. And I think when you start adding up the college debt plus with the cost of childcare and then what it costs to actually purchase your starter home in the city of Peabody, it's very difficult for those folks coming in. And that's something we really got to pay attention to. It's one reason why I was so adamantly opposed to a developer's plan to remove the inclusionary zoning requirement for subdivisions. There was that subdivision in South Peabody. The developer came up with tried to push through something that would have limited the amount of affordable homes that would be built there, which is just incredible that even came up during this time frame. So I think, the average, it's economics, right? So the economy is doing well. People have money in their pocket for the most part. If you're of working age, house values have gone up. So that means in this stock, there's not very many houses being built. And that means that folks can compete for if you're a seller, which ultimately drives up the cost. So I think, if you currently own a home in Peabody, your values are going up. Yes, we do have very affordable rates on our electrical rates. I think our tax rates, yes, they've gone up, are still extremely competitive on the North Shore in Essex County. And I look at this in general as it really is the perspective that you're coming from. I think prescription costs and other medical issues are really hitting seniors. I see it at the senior center pretty regularly. But you have the availability of senior housing, and that stock that's being built is helping to alleviate some of that. The one problem I cannot solve as a counselor with the one main one I get at the senior center is it's either a parent, a child trying to find housing for their parent, or it's a senior citizen that's outlived, the house is too big for them to maintain, and they're looking for senior housing. Those are the two issues that come up constantly that I just cannot help people with, and it's heartbreaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have to say that each and every response on that question from my colleagues here was excellent. It's not it's a good question, but there's no easy answer. So I don't want to repeat a lot of the points that have already been made, good points that have been made by my colleagues. But I will tell you this. I do not want to participate in taxing our seniors out of their homes. Just because their mortgage is paid off, I don't want any part of it. If we continue to raise taxes, that is what we're doing. And the bottom line is Peabody does not have a revenue problem. Peabody has a spending problem. And every day I'm on the council, I look at expenditures. I see what we're spending, and I ask why we're spending it, and then I ask if we need to spend it. I do that every day. I don't wait until budget time. I don't wait until tax classification time to make those decisions. You do it every day. And we need to stop spending. It's just like running your own household budget, just a lot bigger. There's 52 to 54,000 people here. So it's certainly a big budget. But you run it the same way. You live within your means. You don't spend out of your, out of your range. And you have to worry about the bottom line every day. Just not once a year, just not during campaign time or budget time or tax classification. We have to stop spending. And we have to keep our taxes down, and we need to protect our seniors and let them stay in the homes that they've lived in for generations, raise their kids, and they want to stay there. They deserve to stay there. And we as a council should respect that and work towards making that happen.
Thank you, Ann. So,
All right.
I don't
Now
know
this
if
is yours.
I don't know if Ann read my card or not.
I think there's a little cheating going on here.
No, so here's my question. So right now, we really seem to have a boom economy. Unemployment rates are low. Stock market is doing very well. I don't know if people have looked at their 401ks, but I don't hear any complaints about that. They're building everywhere. I even saw an ad for Birch Hill Estates starting at $879,000. So the question is this: with all the development in the city, the building permit fees that we're taking in, the real estate taxes that we're taking in, taxes are going up for the 17th straight year in a row. So do we have a spending problem? Do we have a revenue problem? Or is it something else? And this would go to
I think
Tom.
it's Tom, yeah.
Tom?
Thank you for that question. I think, like I said in the very first answer that I had, it's about balance. Yes, I do think we have a little bit of a spending problem, and we have to make sure that we are always watching what we're spending on. But I also think we've done a very good job at revamping our infrastructure, which was woefully underserving. And a perfect example of that is the water treatment. We're spending $35 million on a water upgrade so that we don't have to ever again be reliant on the MWRA. I think that was a great learning lesson for us when the Coolidge pumping station went down. We realized that if we start to rely on other people, you think our taxes are bad now, they would go through the roof if we're renting our power from somebody else, if we got rid of the light plant, and if we're buying our water from the MWRA. So some of it is an infrastructure problem, to be honest with you. We need to make sure that we're maintaining the things we have and controlling spending. So I think the investments that we're making, whether it's in the schools and rehabbing some of the buildings, whether it's the water infrastructure that we're doing, we're going to be doing Central Street, which is another $11 million project. So yes, we have to control spending, absolutely, but we also have to definitely maintain our infrastructure. You know, our buildings are not getting any younger, and if we don't maintain them now, it's going to be a really big price tag down in the future.
Okay, Tom,
Thank you, Tom.
thank you.
John?
I would have to say, not sitting on the council year after year, knowing what the budget is, but I do have some budget experience with the police department. And not so much that it's the police department, but the city has a spending problem. We've already mentioned that. Look how many properties the city has bought, taken off the tax rolls, or how many properties sit vacant that could be sold. That in and of itself could help to go back into revenue for the city and also create tax revenue. Again, not having sit on the council for all the other budgets, having done contract negotiations for several years, having spoken with other people throughout the city, I would say that it's more of a spending problem. And yes, you know, as Ken Rossignoll said, we do have to fix things, and there are some infrastructure issues we need to fix, but that's what we need to spend our money on, not purchasing buildings, not getting into frivolous lawsuits. That, in my opinion, would save the taxpayers a lot of money and would probably get by with 1 year without raising taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Well, the major budget increase drivers are salaries, healthcare, and then ancillary costs to include, you know, a lot of what we're doing is a retirement payback. A lot of what I've seen on the council, my last year and a half, especially during budget time and everything else, is a lot of catch up. So, for example, the state has mandated a certain amount of required that the city of Peabody has to contribute to its retirement fund to it that it can fund properly 100% fund it. That's not something that the state requires cities and towns to do because they were funding it properly. It requires because they kicked the can down the road for so long. And so we're at this point today where we're looking at infrastructure issues that, I think the water treatment plant is something that could have been maintained over generations. It's something we've got to fix today. It's a problem today. It's a fire issue. It's a fire drill. So we're running around trying to fix things because they're breaking down in front of us. The one thing that has surprised me the most about my time in municipal government is how incredible it is that the lights come on and the place functions because of how limited the resources are. Every day when I talk to a city service person, it's talking about how they're limited on what they can provide. And this is not any problem with the administration. It's because consistently the number one look we're trying to do is to ensure that we're not overspending. Now, there are areas I would agree that I don't agree. I think we put too much emphasis on. But I don't see the city. I see the city of Peabody as a place that's operating based off of what it has to do with, and not necessarily on a long-term look, because we are dealing with problems that are breaking down in front of us today. And I think what I want to see happen as a 34-year-old living in the city of Peabody is a long-term investment structure that we can make sure that we can deal with these problems long-term, so that we can say that we know what we can afford and we can spend it on that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Well, I've already answered this question, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Barry asked the question, and then I anticipated it being asked. But he's fiscally conservative, as am I, so it's kind of something that's always on the forefront of my mind. Since I've answered the question, I'll give you a couple of examples of how we don't have a revenue problem; we have a spending problem. Billboards was supposed to bring in. It was supposed to be a solution. $500,000 a year was going to bring in. Dick, did your taxes, did you mention they're going up every year since the billboards
I haven't
came in?
mentioned it. I think I'm aware of it, though.
Yes. Maybe Barry mentioned it. So, billboards, $500,000 a year, there's revenue. Did your taxes go down? No, they did not. They've gone up. Years ago, under a previous administration, I believe the hotel and meals tax, another money grab, supposed to keep our taxes down. Did your taxes go down? No, they went up. Whatever we bring in, we spend. We have to stop doing that. That's the spending problem. Not a revenue problem, a spending problem. And the next thing coming down the pike is rumblings of marijuana, recreational marijuana. People are, why didn't you get the recreational marijuana? There's so much money you're going to get. It's going to bring in so much taxes. Because we'll just spend it. So is that a money grab you want to go for? Everything that comes with recreational marijuana for the money that we clearly, it's not, we could grab at that. Dick's taxes are going to go up again because we have a spending problem and we need to stop spending. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Jarrod,
you're up.
Jarrod?
You're up.
If you think we have a spending problem now, take a close look at the infrastructure and municipal buildings in this city. Peabody has one police department. It's falling apart. It's so inadequate. It needed to be replaced 10 years ago. We're currently partnering with the Mass School Building Authority with the Welch School, and we're in the feasibility stage. Mr. Melville and I both sit on that committee, and we're in the feasibility stage. We're on their agenda for October 30th to move forward on the feasibility study to make a determination as to whether or not that building is going to be renovated, rehabilitated, or a new building is going to be considered. There's going to be a significant amount of money that the city is going to be responsible for in terms of that project. Now, it's a capital improvement, so we can use our terrific bond rating and borrow money at a very inexpensive rate, but it's going to be another expenditure. Talking to people on the street every day, people don't want the city to buy property. What they want is the money that the city is using to buy that property to be used to fix their streets, to pave their streets, to fix their sidewalks, to improve the quality of life that they have every single day. Pensions is the next big expenditure coming down the road for the entire state. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, every city and town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Commonwealth have underfunded pensions forever. It's what's handcuffing the MBTA in terms of improving services and providing proper services to people because of the pensions that they're paying out. It is the next big problem that we have. What we fail to also see is that the school department is about 50% of the city budget. We need to work with our state legislature to work on proper funding towards education. The state legislature has taken that up. We need to encourage them to push through legislation that reimburses cities and towns like Peabody in an amount that's fair so that we can properly educate students and not on the homeowners' backs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That's it for the questions.
Okay, this isn't planned, but since we got some extra time, the thing is, I want to make a comment, and Barry, I'd like to have you make a comment. My comment is about this spending. Do we have a revenue or a spending problem? I think what we have is a priority problem. Okay, we've said on the show, if you've watched it, we can't do everything at once. That's the problem with this administration. They're trying to do everything at once. Can't do it. And because people don't have deep pockets. Some do, but most don't. And so I think a good planning model would be a model that would attack priority issues, like you just mentioned, Jarrod, about the streets. Should we have given raises to people who make six figures? Or should we use some of that money should we take the GIC money that was supposed to have $4.5 million, boon to the city? And Ann was right. No matter what, partnering with other communities to buy things, what do they call it when they share all the regionalization? Supposed to save money, right? They went to a 2-year tax. They had the budget plan instead of every year, 2 years. It's supposed to save money. All of the stuff that was supposed to save money made headlines. You got people all excited, but none of that stuff ever happened. The taxes have continually gone up year after year after year. So that tells me that the city has to get its act together. The political leaders in this city have to get their act together. We can't do everything at once. How about doing 1 or 2 projects every year? Okay, so maybe we get to a point sometime where we don't raise the taxes. Barry?
Well, I'm not running for office, so I did my 10 years. I served. So, to me, look, it is about priorities, and I understand the infrastructure concerns. But when I see frivolous lawsuits, I see buying of buildings that could be that money, bring those buildings back on the tax rolls, private industry, raises for non-union. I think that it's a combination of things, and I understand that we have a lot of buildings and a lot of issues in this city. So, and I don't think people, if their taxes go up, they don't have an issue with it if they know what the plan is. And we need to raise the taxes this year because we'll put in $35 million. But when then, on the other hand, we just pay out $1.2 million on a lawsuit, that's a problem. So I'm going to shut my mouth because I'm not running for office, but I think that all the candidates were very well spoken, and a lot of points are spot on. So
Thanks for coming again, and we're going to give you all a minute, so to say,
perfect
closing remarks. So I think we'll go this way this time. Jarrod, you got the first say on this
Yeah.
closing remark.
Thank you to, again, the 2 of you and the 4 of you for participating in this forum tonight. I think, or at least I hope, that the viewers got a little insight into where each of us stand on some issues. As I said before, I'm number 5 on the ballot. I'd ask for you to please consider using one of your 5 votes as for a Councilor-At-Large for me on the ballot. The reasons that I think I'm qualified are, as I said, I have a track record with public service. I've been sitting on the school committee for 10 years, but some of my recent initiatives, collaborating both with the public and the private sector, like the No Child Goes Hungry program, has been extremely rewarding and extremely successful. We work where we feed 375 or so kids every weekend, and the only way we do that is by getting help and support from staff members within the Peabody Public School Department. PATV has a big role in helping us with delivering. Council on Aging has a big role, and that's the kind of government I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of a government that collaborates with the private and public sector in various forms so that we can help people who need help and accomplish goals to solve problems.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Jarrod.
And good luck on the campaign.
Thanks, Dick.
Ann?
Thank you, and thank you both again, Barry and Dick, for having us, PATV, and those of you at home that are watching, that are tuned in to it's an important race. And I'm really going to defer my time to just thank my colleagues, the colleagues up here. The questions were great, and the answers were intelligent and thoughtful and really spot on. And it'd be an honor for me to serve with all of you, frankly, and if the voters will have me back for another term. So I'm number 3 on the ballot, and I'd appreciate your consideration for one of your 5 votes. But this is a great group up here, I can tell you that. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck on the
Thank you.
campaign. Ryan?
Thank you. Again, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to everybody for being here. It was great. This is a great forum. My name is Ryan Melville. I'm number 2 on the ballot, and I would love to serve the city of Peabody again for another term on the city council. Just one thing one thing I'm really proud of is I'm a veteran, and we had some veterans groups come to me this past year and about an issue about getting elderly and senior citizen veterans to their appointments at the Bedford, Jamaica Plain, or West Roxbury VA. And as a group, as the council, the administration, and our veterans agent, we got the veteran volunteer tax abatement out there so that the volunteers and they put their time in, they could get their expenses back on an abatement on their taxes, which was a great unique way of making that project happen. And the day after it was passed, I had an appointment up there, and Mike Schultz was driving up with the Peabody Veterans van right in front of the Jamaica Plain VA. It was a really proud moment for me. So, as rewarding, as much as I want to give back to the city of Peabody, this position is so rewarding to me, and I want to support all the great things we're doing in Peabody, whether it be the YMCA, the huge investments we're seeing at the North Shore Mall, the restaurant scene that's coming out. We've got a lot of great things happening in this city, and the reason why I think it's great that we're critical is because we have a high standard, and I think it's important we maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Good luck.
Thanks.
John.
Dick, Barry, PAT, thank you very much for having this. I've been committed to the city for 32 years at this point in time. And let me tell you, from everyone that I've worked with in the city, we do have a great city. We have great people that work for the city. We have great people that live here. I've seen nothing but positive while I'm knocking on doors, walking and talking. I may not be as polished because I haven't sat on the city council, so I don't know the inner workings of every single detail that's going on, but I promise you, if you give me your vote in November, I will research everything, I will have all the answers, and I will always give you a voice on the seat of the city council. I work for you. I've been doing it for 32 years. I will keep doing that. I would be honored to do that, and I'm number 1 on the ballot for Councilor-At-Large. Thank you so much for watching tonight.
John, good luck.
Thank you.
On the campaign. Tom?
Thank you.
Last word, Tom.
Last words. I'm Tom Rossignoll. I'm 6th on the ballot. First, I want to thank Dick. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, PAT. This was actually a great forum. 4 other great people that I've worked with or gotten to know over these last few months. Me personally, I've been on the school board for 8 years, and I've been on the city council for 2. I've coached in the city of Peabody a number of years in a bunch of different sports. I always try to do my best in anything that I do. I work hard. I try to be responsive in any situation. I try to be collaborative in anything that's being done on the city council. And I humbly ask for your consideration of one of your 5 votes in November. Like I said, I'm 6th on the ballot. And again, thank you very much to PAT, Dick, Barry, and everybody else here for a great forum.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
And I have to echo what Ann said. You guys were very articulate and really good, thoughtful answers. So, did we prep them before they came on?
No.
But anyway, thank you out there for watching. We hope you appreciated the forum and the candidates tonight. And don't forget to go out on the 6th, right? 6th of November? 5th.
5th.
I'm 6th. It's the 5th.
Okay. Don't forget to go out on the 5th of November, first Tuesday in November. These guys have been working hard to get your vote, so don't let them down. Go to the polls and vote. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks when we ask you to make the call. Thanks a lot.